In this video, we're going to show you the top 5 stabilizers that you'll use for pretty much every embroidery design. From cutaways to tearaways to toppers to water-soluble stabilizers and specialty stabilizers for every project. Well, as you can see, the top 5 has kind of multiplied a little bit as we have more than 5 stabilizers here on the table. And here's the thing. With anything with embroidery, whether you're talking about stabilizers or you're talking about threads or anything else, you're going to have what's called a stash. There is a stabilizer stash, there's a fabric stash, there is a thread stash, and you can never have too many, but you got to start with some of the basics. Now within those basics, there are kind of off branches of each, and that's where we kind of have this explode a little bit. But the 3 main stabilizers you're going to be wanting to use on a daily basis are a cutaway, and a tearaway, and a water-soluble stabilizer for doing specialty projects. And then there's a couple others like toppers and other things you might use for more of the in the hoop category, which we're going to get into as well. Now the first one we're going to start with is the cutaway stabilizers, and within this family you're going to find that there is lots of different options available. You have obviously different sizes and heights. You can get the rolls in 25 yards, 50 yards and larger, and you also have different weights of stabilizers. A standard cutaway stabilizer is usually a 2.5 ounce stabilizer, and it's cutaway because you literally have to cut it. You can't tear this one away. It needs to be cut with a pair of scissors after you've actually done the embroidery. Now the 2.5 ounce is generally a little bit less expensive than some of the more specialty, stabilizers within the cutaway family, but it is a stabilizer that is thick and durable, and it's not as expensive, so it's definitely the one that you'll want to start out with. You'll want to use this within items like sweatshirts or heavier knit items, things that aren't going to leave what we like to call a stabilizer shadow. If you're dealing with some thinner items like a golf shirt or a t-shirt, if you use a heavyweight cutaway and you cut away all of the excess stabilizer after you're done, you might actually see on the item that you're wearing a little bit of a line of that stabilizer underneath, and that's what's called a stabilizer shadow, and that's really a no-no, and that's why you need to go to some of our more specialty cutaway products. Now within the no-show mesh, this is a much thinner stabilizer, and this is generally what we like to use on PK knit golf shirts or t-shirts. Anything that is a sheer fabric, this is the stabilizer you'd use. Because it is actually so thin, it does have a heat press grid that goes in both X and Y directions, almost looks like tire tracks, and that's what makes it so strong in both directions without it having to be so thick. Now this does also come in 3 different colors, as you can see. I like to refer to them as chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. And you might ask yourself, why would I need all 3 colors? The white is for most applications. The black is for sheer dark colors, black colors, so you don't see an actual white shadow underneath. And the beige is for matching most people's flesh tones. So if you are using a sheer white garment that you'll actually see through, you wouldn't necessarily want to use white on it because you'll actually see that stabilizer shadow. This will match most people's flesh tones a little bit closer, and you won't see the stabilizer at all. There is also a variance of this which does have a fusible backing. This one is not fusible, and I believe one of them is fusible, which I think is this one right here. And I can tell because on the back side it looks a little bit shiny. Anytime you see that shiny type of appearance, that means it's a fusible interface. And if I really want to make sure that this is going to hold on to the back of an item and reduce that pull, because a lot of times thin fabrics are really stretchy, I can iron this on the entire back of an item and hoop it completely within the hoop, and it's going to reduce all of the pulling within that fabric. And because it's kind of a temporary adhesive, you can then pull it up after you embroider it, and then you'll cut around the edge and you'll find you get much better results. So within this one stabilizer, we have our traditional cutaways, which can be in different weights for different applications. We have our no-show mesh family, which comes in 3 different colors, fusible and non-fusible, and to be honest, eventually you'll want to have them all. Now the next family of stabilizers, which is the opposite of a cutaway, is a tearaway stabilizer, and it does exactly what it says. It actually just simply tears away. It's very, very useful for certain projects because you don't have to cut around it, you can tear it away. And this is a stabilizer that I think everybody should use, and if at all possible, use it majority of the time if it's not a item that you're going to wear. But anything like terry cloth, a lot of in the hoop projects, anything that you just need a bit of stability on your fabric, tearaways are the way to go, and they're probably the least expensive stabilizer as well. Now within this family we have standard tearaways. There are fusible tearaways that I've seen as well, which are kind of strange because it, in my opinion, potentially defeats the purpose. But I've also have a family of tearaways where it is what's called a tearaway wash away or a tearaway rinse away, and that is a tearaway stabilizer that has a little bit of fiber to it. It's got a little more fiber to it. I love using this on terry cloth robes, on towel sets, anything that I'm going to hang as a display where you're worried about the front of the embroidery looking good, but you also want the back of the embroidery to look good. Because a standard tearaway, when you tear it away and you put it through the washing cycle a dozen times, you still might see little bits of tearaway trapped in and around the embroidery, especially in the center of the O's and the A's and things like that. But with this stabilizer, the wash away or rinse away, it tears away, and then any exposed fibers that are left there after you tear it away. After 1 or 2 washing cycles, those literally disintegrate, they disappear, and the back of your embroidery obviously has bobbins on it, but it'll look nice and clean just like the front. So anything that I'm going to visually see or anything that I might wear, like a terry cloth robe, you come out, the last thing you want to feel when you put that robe on is scratchiness. You want that to disappear, and this is the stabilizer you'd use. Another tearaway that I think is great for doing a lot of in the hoop projects, or when you're trying to float your items, you're not necessarily hooping the item with your stabilizer. This is a tearaway that actually has a sticky backing. It has a sort of a tacky adhesive, and when you pull the paper part of this, it actually will be tacky and feel. And the idea is I will usually hoop the entire piece of this, paper and all, within my hoop so everything is nice and secured, and then I'll score a window around it, pull that window away so that part of it is left tacky. That way I can take my item that I just want to float on top, and I will just place it down. It'll be a little bit sticky, it'll hold it in place. You might want to use a basting stitch or some pins to hold your item depending on how problematic it is, but it definitely helps you just hold things down without having to use a spray adhesive. Like any tacky stabilizer, you do want to make sure that you watch your needles because they will eventually get gummed up a little bit. That'll happen with spray adhesive as well. And the best thing I found to clean your needles quickly and efficiently, or your hoops if they get a little bit gummy from using spray adhesives or these tacky back stabilizers, is diaper wipes. Diaper wipes will just clean those up quickly, and they are friendly for your skin, so you're not using any abrasive chemicals. Now the next stabilizer is one of my favorites because a lot of our in the hoop projects that we have done in the past, like our 3D designs which incorporate organza, a lot of the things like bookmarks, things where you're lying pieces of material down and you don't want to see any excess stabilizer. The Wet and Gone, the water-soluble stabilizer, is one of the best to use because it is like a regular fibrous stabilizer. It looks just like a regular cutaway, but if I were to spray this with water, it would literally melt and start to disappear. So it is also great within freestanding lace, and we have an incredible array of vintage lace files that were manually punched 65 years ago. So this is the product that we use over and over again for a lot of our specialty designs. Now the best way to use this product is either a single layer, or sometimes we will tell you to double it up so you get a little more emphasis on stability. But you're just gonna hoop the entire area within your hoop, and then you can start to embroider all of your items on there. If you're doing little flowers, lace work, bookmarks, if you're doing 3D designs, you'll just finish them off, and then you can cut around the edge, leaving a little bit of this product exposed, and then when you rinse it away in very hot water, all of the residue will just disappear. It's an incredible product. We'll let you know within our tutorials when we call for this stabilizer to be used. Now this one is relatively new to the family, and it is our prep patch, and we don't just use this for patches. We've actually started to use this as well with a lot of our in the hoop projects, because the stability of this product to embroider on, even though it is plastic, is incredibly strong. We can do entire motifs, designs, patches, and you can embroider everything in here, and it barely cuts away at the actual plastic that you see. It does have a dimply side on it, and I think that's what really makes the difference with it being really stable within the hoop, because you don't have two shear sides that are interacting with the space in the hoop and just kind of, being pulled in because there's nothing holding it. You have a dimply side that gives it a roughness so that when it is trapped between the two sides of your hoop, it actually won't move as much when you do it. This is also a great product when you're hooping it to give it extra stability, because you can use pins. We use T-pins to hold it in place to stop all of that stretching happening at the same time. So this is one of our new favorites for in the hoop projects, and again within our tutorials we let you know when we suggest using this one as well. Last but not least is our water soluble topping. This is within the stabilizer family, but this doesn't go underneath of your embroidery, it actually goes on top of your embroidery, and it is water soluble. You tear it off, and then if there's any residue or little pieces, you actually remove it with either a little bit of spray, and to be honest, the stabilizer itself works as the best way to get rid of it, because the best way to remove water soluble topping is to use water soluble topping. But this actually will float on top of your embroidery. I don't like to hoop it within the stabilizer and the fabric. I prefer to hoop it and pin it in place so that it doesn't create a blurry window. I want to make sure that my fabric is pulled, tightly and securely. And if I try to hoop this in with the other two pieces, it gives me a bit of a blurry window, and I can't make sure that the important part of the hooping is done. And you want to make sure that you do pin it in place, because this does have a tendency in the machine to kind of start moving and get scrunched up, and it can cause some detrimental results. But it is a great product for increasing the quality of the top stitches. If you're doing things on PK knit, very loose woven materials, you're doing work on terry cloth which has a high pile, this will help to keep the stitches down and in place, stopping them from falling into all the hills and the valleys of the woven materials, and give you cleaner satin stitches and outlines when your embroidery is actually done. So there you have it. Here are all the stabilizers in no particular order, but they all have a specific purpose, and all of our tutorials will let you know which stabilizer to use when running our design. Now let us know in the comments below if you have any questions, and be sure to watch this next video. We'll see you next time.